Welcome everybody, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here at the Sailing Centre at Boot Düsseldorf. We are here with three exceptional sailors from the very pinnacle of our sport to talk about high performance. They come from Sail GP, the reigning champions of Sail GP. They come from sailing around the world in the IMOCA class, and in both of those disciplines, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. They are united by the fact that they are here with Musto, the world's premier technical clothing brand, and with Malizia, the Peter Frisch company. And all of them are here to share with us a little bit of an insight into their world, what it's like to sail at 50 knots, and what it's like to do extreme speeds through the Southern Ocean. So I'm just going to take a little seat. You guys have got some microphones there. So I think, first of all, Dylan Fletcher, the driver of the F50 Emirates Great Britain Sail GP team, the reigning champions in last season. You had a wonderful weekend, just gone in Perth, Australia, winning the inaugural event of 2026. And you've flown from Perth, Australia to here. Thank you very much. So I should start by saying congratulations. It looked to be quite an extreme weekend.
Yeah, incredible weekend. Just really lucky to get to sail the F50 in those conditions. Obviously, at the end of last season, we had some light wind events. So to go to somewhere like that, where the local breeze, the doctor, the sea breeze pumps in every day, was very special.
And I think with all of you, you're no stranger to going fast. What's the fastest you've gone on your F50?
I think we've done just over 100 Ks an hour. We're not quite as quick as the Danish. They hold the speed record at 104, so we've got some work to do.
Okay, but still, over 100 kilometers an hour, 50 knots, that is incredibly fast. Will, I know that you're a little bit more longer miles as you go around the world, but your top speed?
I guess normally we're looking in knots, but on the IMOCAs we're probably around 75, so we're lacking that last 25% compared to these guys. Those F50s are very impressive boats. But
both of you, all of you, along with Ben, of course, you know, Dylan, your teammate as well, you're really all of you pushing the envelope. So I think the first question is, just for Ben, for Dylan, you guys in the F50, what is it like to travel at those speeds? Ben, you've got your head down most of the time. You're grinding away. I know you've been doing a little bit of wing trimming, getting a wider skill set. Do you still get time to smile when you go that fast, or is it just too scary?
Yeah, it's a great sensation, the speed that these boats are capable of. And I think one thing that probably isn't highlighted so much, you know, we look at the straight line speed, but actually with the F50s, the amount of grip that you have through the turns, actually the force when we're trying to cross over the boat, if you're working against that G-force, you know, it's a superb, like you're hanging on to things to try and stay in the right place and trying to run at the right time. So yeah, that's probably the most overwhelming feeling on the boat.
And you're tethered on as well. I mean, people have fallen off boats like that in the past, so you guys are actually physically clipped on.
Yeah, that's right. And you certainly feel like you need it at times. You know, it's if you get your timing wrong and you're caught in no man's land, as we'd call it, with nothing to hold on to, and you're working against the forces, you certainly want that tether clipped on.
So, Dylan, what do we miss when we're watching Sail GP? It's fast, it's furious. What is it about sailing that boat that we miss as a viewer? Because it looks extreme, it looks hard, but you're actually out there trying to do it.
I think what's just incredible about it is the boats are obviously very fast, but the reality is that there's 11, 12 other boats on the racecourse, and just that hecticness and trying to plan ahead and make decisions and ultimately keep the boats in one piece. You know, we saw unfortunately the weekend an accident between the Swiss and the Kiwis, which took the Kiwis out, and luckily the Swiss, you know, no one was injured and the Swiss got back out. But yeah, trying to keep everyone safe and that feeling, I'm sure it's the same for you, Will, like that feeling of responsibility for the whole crew when you're driving the boat.
Yeah, if anybody didn't see that crash, the back end of Team New Zealand was ripped off their catamaran and ended up sort of floating away. It was quite dramatic. Will, give us a sense. I mean, you say you go a little bit slower, but only a little bit slower. You're not going slow, and you, of course, are not doing this for an 8-minute race. You're doing this for maybe days, weeks, maybe months at a time. Give us a sense of what that experience is like.
Yeah, I think if I really compare this to the Ep4 sailing, when you see Dylan and Ben sailing around these courses, they're fully exposed to those elements the entire time they're racing, with that even faster water speed than what we experience on the IMOCA. But it's what we've had to change in the boats, really. You'll see the cockpits of the IMOCAs are inside now, because just dealing with that 24/7 round the clock is really challenging for us. We can handle it for an hour or two, but round the clock, that's really tough. So now we've sort of adapted the boats a little bit for this as well. And yeah, pretty relentless. It's even though we're inside and we're not got the water exposure, like they're saying with the tethers there, the G forces you experience on the boat is bone breaking and pretty uncomfortable. So I think that's the thing not to forget. We don't get to come back to a warm shower at the end of the day. It's into the bunk for a couple of hours before we're up in the middle of the night.
It would be silly to compare who has it tougher. They're both very brutal, but it is interesting that Ben, Dylan, you guys get to do your race, and then by the time we're putting a camera in front of you to ask you what it was like, you've got changed. You're there, you've got a tie on, you've got, you're looking pretty smart. You've had time maybe to do your hair. Whereas Will, I think you're still sort of out there. I mean, how long does it take you, Dylan, to sort of get back on land and kind of, calm down from that adrenaline high?
Well, we were just speaking about this earlier, actually. On Sunday, maybe I had a few too many caffeine gels, and I was still buzzing and shaking. And a couple of hours afterwards, still running off that adrenaline. But yeah, I mean, like what Will does is unbelievable, being able to keep those speeds up and keep that attention for that long. I need to probably go and have a go. We should swap one day.
Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah.
And what about the exposure to those elements? Because you were talking about being down below on an IMOCA, but you don't win races by being down below in an IMOCA. You have to get out there into the elements. You have to get pummeled by the conditions. But I'm imagining that's quite hard to pack for. That at one level you're going to be inside, and then the next minute you could be outside. That makes quite a demanding decision in terms of how you kit yourself out.
Yeah, the kit bag on the IMOCAs now is extremely challenging. We've got all sorts of conditions where we might be starting a race in the northern hemisphere in the winter, and so you're starting on a cold day, and then it gets to the winter, and then it gets to the nighttime, and it gets even colder. And then a few days later, you're down in the tropics, and it's boiling hot, and you're going from outside doing a sail change to in the cockpit, grinding away, being really sweaty, and then somehow trying to sleep in the bunk as well. So it's really cool to have developed some top-level kit with Musto to make sure we have the kit bag that we need on the water. And I think it's so important, especially when we're short-handed on these boats, to keep the sailor, to keep the human in best shape possible. And the way to do that is with the kit.
And Dylan, Ben, do you guys have to worry about? Well, I mean, I guess Will has to worry about it as well, but impact. Not just, I'm getting a bit of waves over me, I'm getting a bit of water, but like you were saying, you get thrown around. Do you sort of wear, body protection?
Yeah, I mean, impact's certainly a thing. Even just jumping in and out of the cockpits at that speed, it's, you've got some pretty hard things that you're going to bump into. I guess the life jackets kind of double up as a bit of impact protection. Obviously, we race with helmets on. We run with comm sets inside, so being able to just communicate on board with the wind speeds traveling over the deck at that speed, it's something that your everyday sailor probably can't comprehend.
If I'm right, in the last weekend in Perth, I mean, I think it was another British sailor on another team. We saw, was Chris Draper, I think, kind of came over, got his face really sort of banged up. I mean, Dylan, you must have your fair share of bruises as well. Can you protect yourself on these boats?
Yeah, I try not to get bruised too often, just so it's like, picking the right time to get out of the cockpit. But yeah, I felt really bad for Chris, Artemis, so their first roundup out there with the doctor in 20 knots, and he was still trying to trim. All went wrong and ended up eating the trampoline on the boat, and it was painful. But luckily, he was able to get back and up for the weekend. But then we saw Gooby, our old wing trimmer, made a mistake in training, fell through the gap and damaged his knee. So yeah, it's definitely up there. And Ellie, in fact, our sort of reserve strategist, she made a an interesting decision when she left the cockpit midway through attack, and luckily the tether saved her from going out the back.
I think it's a little like you see that seagull flying across the water and you think, wow, they're so graceful. And I remember my friend saying to me, yeah, but we don't get to see all the practice flights where they crash into the wave. And I guess when we see you guys on the TV, you make it look so good, but we haven't seen all the times in practice where you've been getting it wrong. You know, I mean, Will, I guess the difference there is these guys get to sit up for a minute and go, all right, well, we'll join in the next race. But for you, it just carries on going.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear from these guys their actual behind-the-scenes experiences. But you know, one thing that I really see the sort of the difference is how intense the racing actually is. You know, when we're racing on the IMOCAs, we have days, we have hours to make the decisions about if we're going to go left or right, if we're going to go north or south. Whereas these guys have split seconds to make those decisions. And you know, as Dylan's saying, he's responsible for a whole crew on board. It's a pretty impressive thing to watch these short, intense races, and it's a whole different sport in some ways to us, sort of having hours, days, and a bit more of a chess game for us, I'd say.
And harder to see those small gains play out. I mean, I guess for you, if you shave a little bit of weight, you take a thinner mattress, you take a little bit less food, and you save a few grams over a month, you'll see that. I don't know, Dylan, do you get that? Do you have that same attention to detail? I mean, you don't have a mattress on board. You're not taking food on board, but you know what I mean.
Do you have a mattress on board?
Sort of, yeah. Very, very, very thin one. But
Yeah, I've always, my attention to detail and marginal gains is something I've always been quite passionate about, sometimes to the annoyance of other members of the team. But it's the same thing. Weight's critical. We have a weight that we have to hit in SailGP, and we sort of vary that a little bit depending on the conditions and how much lead we need to carry. So, as ever, details matter, and fine margins win big races.
And I'm guessing, Ben, as well, for you, you've got very different demands in terms of what you're looking from equipment. Dylan, you do a very good job. You work very hard, but you know, you're much more physical on that boat. You need a lot more freedom of movement. You know, how do you address that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we certainly have on boats some days conflicting clothing. You know, the guys up the front are asking to take some layers off, and Dylan and the guys at the back are asking for a spray top. But yeah, the other thing with the circuit as well, it's at the moment we're in the Southern Hemisphere, and then there's so many different venues that it's not one, it's one bit of kit doesn't do the season. We need to be, last weekend in Perth, it was 30 odd degrees. We might come to Portsmouth in the middle of the summer and it might be 10 degrees. So we need a big quiver of kit.
And Will, you get to design your own kit, but the whole thing with Musto that Dylan and Ben are joining you with here, you get a customization of kit, right? It's not just taking some stuff off the sand. We get to enjoy the fact that a designer designs it, you test it, improve it, and then perhaps I get to buy it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's one of the really important parts of the clothing company Musto that we work with is we can feed back, and as we've seen in IMOCAs and offshore sailing, it's with this sort of semi-foiling that we do now, a bit like the F50s. It's totally changed how we sail, and it's totally changed the demands of an offshore sailor. We don't just need big bulky offshore kit anymore. We've got to streamline things. We've got to think about impact protection like these guys have. We're getting thrown around a bit more. We're thinking about helmets now as well, and that's just so important to develop. Just as we develop the IMOCA to make it go faster, we've also got to develop the kit in this way as well. And every time we go sailing, each time we do a different race, we'll have a new bit of feedback, or we'll have tried out a new piece of kit. And it's really interesting to see how my kit bag, I would say, has changed in the last few years, having seen the boat sort of go from, they're going 10 knots faster than they were when I first started sailing IMOCAs. So. And
you will be going faster. I mean, we're in Germany's German Team Malizia, and you do have a new boat that is being put together now. It would be very wrong of me not to ask, here in Germany about the German team and their new boat. Give us an update on your new racecraft.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was a bit sad saying goodbye to the old Malizia, which we sailed around the world in 2023 in the ocean race. But we're very much in the middle of designing and developing and building the new Malizia 4, which is going to be launched this summer for the next round the world race, the ocean race, starting in January next year. And the boat's going to be different. We're going to, we're seeing a lot more now that we're actually steering the boats again, a bit like Dylan does on the F50s, where the autopilots are great, but really the human is the best steering tool at the moment, and that means we're on deck more. And I think that's totally changing what kit we bring. In the latest race was the Transat Café Law double-handed race, and I think I was spending 12 hours a day steering in that that race, double-handed. So, the watches are getting a lot more tough again, and the ocean race is going to be just the same. We've got a crew, so we're going to be dividing up our watches, and I definitely think that I'm going to have some things to talk about with Musto this summer for sure.
And Dylan, you're somebody that always likes to innovate. I know you don't just do Sail GP. You're out on your Moth as well. You're always sort of looking for the cutting edge. In fact, actually, I think it was at breakfast. I saw you guys at breakfast, and you were talking about his new boat, and you even took the time to suggest, maybe you could do the rudders like this, and maybe you could have this little thing. How much does that innovative end of our sport interest you?
Really passionate about always pushing the boundaries, and that's why we're all lucky up here to be working with Musto and push the boundaries. Like, we started off the season in Perth with some amazing new kit that really did help us out there, and I think that's what I love. And whether or not it's developing new kit to make us more comfortable, keep us warm, keep us cool, whatever it is, or it's trying to make the boat a little bit faster, it all adds up and makes a difference.
Ben, do you share that, or is it very annoying when the driver comes off the water and starts talking about things in decimal places?
No, I mean, everyone involved at this level of the sport has the same level of love for that, and to be honest, it's become such a huge part on, we go through the data in such fine detail. Everyone on board's involved in that, and you need that level of understanding, as a whole crew, to be able to go the next day and be like, right, this is our tweak for tomorrow, and get everyone on the same page.
At what point in something like Sail GP, at what point will we run out of those possible tweaks, or where they get just infinitely too small? Because everyone's on the same type of boat, everyone's on the same type of wing. It's quite controlled. Does it get quite nervous searching for the next little area to gain?
It's a good question. I mean, certainly no one's perfect, let's say, at the moment. You'll always finish a race and say, this one tack or this one maneuver, we made a mistake. And I think we saw it in Perth at the weekend. People have been away from racing these boats for probably 6 weeks, and it got scrappy. It's the sort of boat that you've got to be so on it every time you step on it, and being away from it for even just that small break, the standard across the board was lower for sure, and in 4 months' time the standard will be a lot higher because everyone will be race sharp.
So I guess then a question, and maybe Dylan, maybe you could take this one on. How do you break into it? Because I think a lot of people who will walk through these halls this week will be thinking, Sail GP, sailing around the world in a Mocha class, I'd like a little bit of that, but it feels a long way out of reach for a lot of people. So it's not easy, I'm sure, but what were some of the things that you think might make that goal just a little bit closer?
I think that, as with, I'm sure it's the same in the offshore, in terms of, I think really that passion. Like, we've been looking recently at some of the younger sailors that we need to bring up in our team for that next generation. And when they've got a deep passion and they're into it and they're out training, they're working hard, that is really what makes a difference. And it's really amazing to see that. And with the opportunities there are now within, I think, a wide range of our sport, it's never a better time for the youth of today to get into the top level of sailing.
And Will, in the offshore world, obviously there's so much, you walk around these halls, there's so many different aspects to offshore sailing, whether it's cruising, whether it's taking on the challenges that you do, but how could people one day, or at least just keep the dream alive that they might be able to step on board and a Mocha race boat at the pinnacle of our sport?
Yeah, no, I think like Dylan says, the passion is super important, and I guess you're making it your life, really. It's you look at Dylan and Ben, they're flying to a different place around the world every weekend, sort of sacrificing everything else they do in life to get to do that. And it was a similar situation for me. I ended up moving to France to to really get that opportunity. And there's no one pathway to do it. There's no correct answer. It's, everyone you speak to, there's a different way that they got through it, but it was about making those opportunities and saying yes to as many opportunities as possible to then, one of them will be the golden ticket, and then it gives you that, makes you level up. And you've got to really just be on it every weekend and trying to say yes to as many things as possible. And at some point, you'll impress the right person.
So as hard as you three then work, do you still find time to enjoy it? Do you ever just take the little boat out, have a nice little evening sail? Do you ever just sail for pleasure?
Personally, I've actually never found the pleasure of cruising yet. I'm hoping to at some point. My dad has a little cruising boat.
I can tell you what the pleasure is. The pleasure is you look at a sail and you go, that's not right, but it doesn't matter. And then you sit down and you carry on having your drink.
It doesn't feel like holiday anymore then, right? At some point, I hope in the future I won't step on a boat and try and make it as light as possible, or try and trim it to go as fast as possible, because that's not the goal always. But one day I hope to be a nice cruising sailor as well. But I'm not sure about you guys. Are you cruisers? Yeah.
I actually do like a little bit of a busman's holiday, yeah. So I started the year off in the Caribbean on a yacht, chartered, and set the Ep4, the autopilot on. Didn't really do much trimming. Yeah, very much just a relaxed way of life. No, I do enjoy that side of it.
Well, when you go to the Caribbean, that's pretty good. But try, the English-French Channel in the winter, and then we'll come back to you. Just thinking about what is at the heart for both of you. Obviously, we talked about performance, but it's interesting with Team Malizia, you guys have been leading the science in terms of our environment and our racing. And I know that for Dill and Ben, you guys were the Impact League champions for Sail GP. With the kit that you guys are using, Musto's developed this new kit, forever chemical free. They're changing a lot of their materials. Do you notice any sort of difference to that? Does it mean something to you to be using that sort of kit with all your other work that you do?
Oh, completely. I think that I'm sure Will gets to see it even more than we do, but just going around the world and seeing different venues and the impact that we have on our oceans, I think we're all very, very deeply sort of want to do anything we can to improve the oceans. So seeing the changes that Musto are making and being winners of the Impact League with the different projects we did is something that we're really passionate about. And I think all of us can just need to keep chipping away and make one step at a time to keep improving our oceans, and especially trying to reduce the plastic in the oceans, which is something that's very apparent.
And I think, because Will, you really do take a laboratory with you around the world, with some quite advanced sort of equipment there. That's quite a responsibility, but a privilege as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky with the ocean racing that we just have this totally unique opportunity where we get to sail to these very remote parts of the world where research vessels are often trying to go to, and we're going there with this boat powered by the wind. Why don't we use this opportunity by putting an ocean lab on board to then monitor the data and science? And it was really great to see, the Ocean Race Europe last year, we had every boat had some sort of scientific monitoring device, which is, it's crucial to really understand what impacts are we having on the ocean, and where do we need to work on the hardest in order to help improve our ocean health. But it goes across everything as well. The industry of, we're building a new boat at the moment. It's using resources of, finite resources of the world. And so if we can think about every aspect of the building of new boats, of our carbon footprint, and of our sailing kit as well, of how can they be less toxic, how can they be better for the environment and for the ocean, I think that's so important that we cover that topic. And it's definitely at the core of the team.
You do have that laboratory on board, but you're also, all three of you, well, when you're sailing, you have cameras in your face all the time. I mean, you are on your boat in the Southern Ocean with cameras on you. I mean, sometimes recording, 24 hours a day. We can dial into you anytime for interviews, for anything. I'm just wondering what that's like to be under that spotlight, to be that sort of, rat in a maze at time. How do you guys deal with the fact that everybody is critiquing what you do at the front end of the sport?
I guess you've sort of get used to it. I think that in Tokyo Olympics, it was the first time in the Olympic history that athletes have been mic'd up, and that was in sailing. And so I think from there you really start to get used to it. But yeah, there's more and more documentary teams following us around in SailGP, so you've got to be ever more careful as you see the likes of Drive to Survive.
And I've actually had a chance to play with the SailGP audio system, and it automatically filters out swear words. And is this, I mean, this is the conversation I think I have to ask when you talk about being mic'd up. You know, maybe I won't come to you, Dylan. Maybe we'll go to Ben for an honest answer. But when he's driving, does he politely ask and suggest things, or is he a little bit more brutal with his language?
No, I mean, it's always under control. So it's an interesting point how, you know, we've got not only on board are we listening to the comms, obviously, to know what's going on, but from a shore side as well, we've got almost like a Formula One pit wall, which the coaches are completely dialed into. They have back and forth live commentary to be able to help the sailors on board. So not only is that going through to, you know, studios like you're referring to, but the coaches in these, you know, they're on a red button. They're able to say, you know, have you seen this? Have you seen that? So just the amount that is available is phenomenal now.
How do you find as professional athletes, how a good day on the water versus a bad day on the water, do you have to sort of try and force yourself to remember the good days? Where do you kind of keep coming back for more?
Yeah, I guess with a circuit like SailGP, the next event is always just around the corner. So, you know, you can reset. You never walk away from an event saying that was perfect. You know, I'm sure Dylan will probably beat himself up over a few things this weekend, and it was still yet the best performing boat out there. So I think the main thing is everyone at this level is always looking to improve, whether you've won the weekend or not. And like I said, yeah, it's only a couple of weeks before we go and do it again.
And Dylan, what about you? What keeps you coming back for more?
Just always wanting to keep winning, to be honest. I think feels like it's taken me a few years to get to this point where I'm back driving the top team and just want to keep banging away and keep trying to beat all those other teams.
Now, Will, the same question to you, but obviously with the caveat that for these guys, they can go, okay, we'll do one more race, I'll do one more weekend. But for you, one more trip around the world, one more 60,000 miles of relentless up and down and through all the oceans and round the corners. What on earth keeps you coming back for more?
It's strangely addictive in some way. It's you know, you finish a lot of races and you say, I never want to do that again. You know, I've had it a few times, but I think the main thing is how much it makes you appreciate the small things back on land. You know, that warm shower, that hot meal, that chilling out for an hour or two. It's when you go and do the long races, they all just feel 10 times better. And I think it sounds odd, but yeah, that's really something I love about the sport. And obviously there's that experience of being in totally unique parts of the world where there's, you know, the most remote humans in the world at some stages of the racing. And it's always been something I've chased to try and do, and I think I'll keep trying to do in the future as well.
That feels like a pretty good time to finish it there. Please, can you help me by thanking them with a nice big round of applause? Thank you very much, guys.